Watching real closely here the peso into the daily close here. So if you guys want to touch on this first, we'll go with that, and I'll let you guys start to type questions as I go through this chart here. So this is the last chart I posted up today. Again, there are a few pairs here that are really hitting important areas, and I posted a video last week to sort of recap some of the trade ideas I've been posting in the forums, and again, many of you follow along with me, but we sort of saw a very common theme last week, and I think we're reaching a point on a lot of other pairs where we're hitting these tipping points. They're major areas that the price is going to break from one way or the other, and that's really the bread and butter of a trader, in my opinion. And we haven't seen that all that much this year, meaning it's taken a while for some of these pairs to get to these crucial areas. But again, it seems sort of timing out with the U.S. elections that we're going to be hitting these critical areas. Go figure, I guess, right? Before we probably will see some larger breakouts and continued movements that we started to see last week a little bit and the week before here. So again, I'm watching the peso really, really closely here. And for me, again, this is just what I'm doing. This is never a trade signal, trade advice. You guys know I got to say that stuff, but this is lining up for me almost as a no-brainer. And when I say that, again, that's sort of the ideal situation we always want to be in as traders is, okay, our job is to execute, right? Manage our risk, put the trade on, and be logical. The outcome is irrelevant in many ways when you're looking at an individual trade here. So, this is a pair I've been watching for a while. I've been watching this rising trend line here. Again, two major swing points, right? So this line can only be drawn one way. Well, what happens? Price breaks through this area, it holds as support, and we sort of consolidate above it. So, again, I didn't get long in here. A lot of people will say, okay, price closes above it, let's be a buyer here. Resistance should turn into support. And it's very logical. You got the big round number to your back. But this is a situation that reminds you guys of what in many ways. And to give you a hint, it's a trade that I worked through last week. And again, a lot of trades actually sort of were off this theme anyway here. So, what does this sort of trade remind you guys of? Right. So Bear said it, pound New Zealand, right? So again, pound New Zealand was a flat support area, right? If you guys remember, we had support, and then we had price sort of just break right through it, close below. And then I said, okay, listen, I'm going to only look for longs, right, to buy back in on. So let me just throw that up real quick, right? So we had this support, right? Price cuts right through. Again, I was watching on the 4-hour, and I said, okay, I'm only going to look for longs there. And those worked out well, right? So this is a similar situation where, okay, every time we've made a new high, which starts with this major swing point, we fall off. So, there's this slight divergence into this area. It's not very, very strong yet. It's just something to give you sort of a heads up because, again, you're spending so much time away that it's okay, what's more likely up here? Am I going to be more confident playing longs or more confident looking only for shorts? Well, listen, longs worked out just fine. Perhaps there was even something on a lower time frame that was even better looking. I don't really see a whole lot that really piques my interest, but that's the thing about a critical area. Often it can be played both ways. There are arguments both ways, and I can understand those arguments. What we spoke about last week, right, was when you have to make an argument only for one way, it often is dictated by your trade style and your trade management and how you're comfortable with playing risk and playing a trade. So keep that in mind, guys, when you're looking at areas and deciding what you might want to do. And sort of, you always want to be memory banking that and reviewing your stats to understand better where you're better as a trader. And there will be places you're better or worse. So when I saw this area here, for me, again, like the pound New Zealand, since we did not localize it over here as resistance, right? We spent so much time away from this trend line. We didn't bounce here. So again, with this little slight rising trend line, my thought process is wait for shorts, right? So now that could have been like the pound New Zealand where we saw longs play in and then immediately shorts pop through. That's sort of the more almost ideal situation for a false breakout because you really suck in people on that last sort of capitulation move. You wipe out the stop, you suck in buyers, or in the case of the pound New Zealand, sellers. But it doesn't always work that way, right? There's no just one fit for every situation, but what we're getting today is really nice here. So we're getting a nice big bearish outside bar. Again, we can see failures always at these last major highs. Strong closes. Now we have a close under the 19.5. Again, we still got a few hours left here. Close under the rising trend line, these swing points. And again, the critical close for me, if you guys caught my post today, was closing under this low. There is a low in here too that we could sort of say is part of the localization of, say, the rising trend line, the 19.5. But for me, it's really this critical low here that we want to close under to understand who's in control. So really, I mean, it's sort of just spelling itself out for me. As long as we close under the 19.5, which is this low, again, I think a little bit added confidence is if it does close under that low too, but my focus will be this low only. Then, okay, listen, we want to be sellers around here, around that 19.5. You know, again, let's say we close right where we are. You know, maybe you catch a slight retrace here just so you fill yourself on a limit order. You know, you don't throw market orders around, you know, at 5 p.m., what have you. It should pull back here. And our risk, dynamic risk reward area is built in, right? So this is why I'm saying it's a no-brainer trade. A no-brainer trade does not mean we know it's a profitable trade. That's impossible to know, right? We got until we close a trade, nothing matters, right? But it's built in, the dynamics of it, right? So where do we not want to see price pull back past, right? So let's say price closes as is and we get in, you know, right around here, right? So when I say dynamic risk reward is built in, what do I mean by that, right? And again, it's probably fairly easy to understand in this case, which is the best trades. And you guys know I like to question you guys, see where you're at. So what do I mean by that, guys? What do I mean by the dynamic risk reward is built in? Where do we not want to see price go above, or where can we allow price to go that we're still going to be comfortable in the trade? And why is that such a good thing in this case here? Right, so Wake said the trend line, Damien said just above the trend line, and the support and resistance, X said above the big round number. So again, look at your localization, right? So here's our localized low with the 19.5. But we notice this is a box, right? We know that this is more of a zone, you know, even into these opening closes here. So for me, the built-in zone is like this, right? So that doesn't mean that price can't push into this area and turn down, right? It also doesn't mean that, it also can mean that the very low of this box holds us down too, right? But are we going to let price get, let's say we start with our stop up here, are we going to let price hit that stop? Ever? Unless there's some, you know, flash sudden movement and you weren't able to move your stop, which is 99.9% of the time not going to happen, right? So are we ever going to let that stop get hit? To me, this should be unanimous. There should be nobody here, in my opinion, should say yes. It doesn't make sense, right? Because if we're dictating our story as is, it would never make sense, right? So that's always a good starting place, right? So will we let our stop get here or here or here? No, it really just doesn't make sense. So maybe the furthest you let this go is somewhere here. Let's just say that's the furthest you let it go. Let's say our entry is right around here. Our stop loss is above the bar here. So again, our initial risk in this case is from here to here, depending on what you like to risk per trade. You know, on a full bar situation, I'm comfortable with 3%. And let's say worst case is your stop gets hit here. You know, let's say you have no chance to reduce your risk. There's no bounce lower here, right? So your initial stop loss is, again, here to here. But our real true risk is more in here, right? Which is under a half bar risk. So when I see these situations start to appear, that's what I'm drawn to as a trader. I'm not really drawn to getting blinded by a pin bar or an outside bar. It's the combination of things. And, you know, I've been going through some of your journals where, you know, a few of you, you're getting that foundation put in, which is spotting a pin bar and spotting a little bit of confluence and maybe even taking it to the point of where's the best entry. But you're not stringing them all together to say, well, this trade might work out, but because it doesn't have all the dynamics built into it to make it comfortable, it's time for me to step away from that trade. that's where you have to evolve as a trader here. So this is an ideal situation for me. I mean, it's really sort of just spelled out from here. I would label the first trouble area in here near these lows here. So again, even if price gets down to that point, right? So let's say price pulls back, pulls down. I mean, that's a solid profit, right? And we could see it into a more major area depending. Again, we know these markets like to be choppy here. So this would be your major trouble area. This would be your first trouble area. It's all spelled out there for me. Win or lose will not be what makes this a good trade, right? It's sorry guys. So am I breaking up on you guys? Can you guys hear me, or am I breaking up? Okay, so you guys still with me? All right. Okay, yeah. I mean, it definitely could be my internet. It's been fine, today, but it's been crazy with all the work here. So hang with me, guys. So again, guys, this is really for me an ideal type of setup. Now, listen, this could change. This bar could close all the way down here by the end of the day. And then we might need to decide, okay, is it worth playing a pullback, right? Is it worth getting involved in this trade? Has it run too far, right? Things like that. So really, the way it's closing now, I just like it to settle somewhere in here, right? Settle somewhere in here, under this low, under the big round number, play a pullback to this area. You know your zone to cut out. It looks like this. A stop up here is safe. Cut out somewhere around here. That's a great trade for me, and that's what I'm hunting for each day, right? And that's the difference is if you can wait for these types of trades and just be flexible to the situations where when you see other trades and they just don't give you that sort of flexibility, understand either stay away from them or what you can do in turn.